on a Tuesday evening here on VSiN PrimeTime alongside Jonathan Von Tobel. I am Tim Murray. We're live from Las Vegas, Nevada. 2 games on the ice tonight. Boston, Florida. Do the Panthers close out the Bruins? Vancouver, Edmonton, with Vancouver up 2-1. And on the hardwood, Timberwolves and Nuggets and Knicks, Pacers. VSiN Primetime presented by Zyn Nicotine Pouches. Make sure to head over to Zyn.com to learn more. We'll get to what we took in last night, JVT, but what's interesting is we noted right before jumping on the air, boy, it seems like folks are betting this Knicks-Pacers game as if they know the outcome. It was as high as 2.5 last night in favor of the New York Knicks. Now 1 consensus across the board, and even a shop here in Las Vegas has gone to a pick. Total 217, 1 to a pick in favor of the New York Knickerbockers. People are believing that this team has indeed run out of gas. Yep. All the injuries are catching up to them. They get blown out on Sunday. JVT, do you agree with this line move?
I mean, I think I agree with it philosophically in that, look, it's going to be really hard for New York to overcome this. Yeah, I wrote about this today, which is just like, this is the most rest you've gotten in this entire series for a team that's been stretched paper thin. And we're talking about, Tim, the most rest you got was because you got blown out, so guys played less than 30 minutes in a game, and then you got a day off in between. Like, this is going really poorly, and I know a lot of people like to look for it, so it's a clear indicator. There's not really that much sharp support out there for the New York Knicks, because if there was, there would have been some buyback at some point, like you mentioned. When you see a shop go down to pick, clearly I think right now, and especially when you see everything else is like 1, there's even a 1.5 out there. So clearly, it's almost like a bad signal, right? Like, hey, we'll take Knicks money. You want to come in here and do that. And right now, that pick is still sitting out there. So at least when it comes to respected money on the New York Knickerbockers, it is non-existent at this point right now. And that makes this pretty fascinating because it harkens back to last night. There wasn't really that much sophisticated market-shaping money on the Dallas Mavericks. We saw that number head steadily in one direction in the days that was leading up from Game 3 to Game 4 for OKC Dallas, and we at least know what the result was there. So it's not that this is generally always predictive. I know a lot of people like to follow the sharp money, if you will, and so maybe this is going to be another one where the market was all over it. But right now, there is no path or there's no resistance here, and one shop at least is waving up a flag and saying, "We'll take your Knicks money if you got it." But there doesn't seem to be a rush to do that, so it's going to be pretty fascinating. Because again, going back to the original premise, I kind of get it. I agree with it to a certain extent. So you're just kind of asking yourself, is playing at home going to be enough of a boon here to push a team that is on its last legs to at least get one more victory? Because remember, home teams in this postseason, 4.7 net rating at home. They have been playing pretty well. Home court, you can argue, worth around that 4-point mark. And again, here it is at a pick in one shot between these two.
Well, and we mentioned this last night, and we're going to show you the DraftKings series price, which, by the way, if you like the Pacers and believe they're going to win this series, that's the best price you're going to find by at least 20 cents. Sure. Because here at Circa, Pacers are minus 152. So if you like the Knicks, don't bet it at DraftKings. If you like the Pacers, DraftKings is your shop. Plus 132 for the Knicks here at Circa to win this series, to come back. Well, not to come back. The series is even at 2 games apiece, but what's interesting to note is there is steady movement, obviously, towards the Indiana Pacers, as we alluded to, sitting there at a pick, JVT. But the Knicks have 2 home games, and the Pacers have 1. But, as we pointed out last night, the Pacers, more than likely, barring OG Anunoby coming back, are going to be a pretty decent-sized favorite in that game on Friday night.
It's telling us, right?
Yeah.
If you're right, let's just say it's the base 3 when it comes to home court. They're going to be at least 6-point favorites. Yep. If when we get back to Indiana in this next matchup.
We were able to take 7.5 last Friday. That came home, but then the market dropped a little bit, and the Knicks got absolutely smashed on Sunday.
Right, and of course, result dependent. It'll change one direction or the other. So if the Knicks come out and just smoke them, you'll get a little bit of a shorter point spread. Same thing the other way. If the Pacers come out and just run them out like we saw over the weekend, you could see a number that's going to be pretty much like, I would say, close to 8 maybe for this next matchup over there in Indiana. But it's a fascinating game, Tim, too, because if you just boil it down to okay, how do we predict what's going to happen? It just goes down to, can you find out how tired and or refreshed this Knicks team is? Because that's all it comes down to. If this team has enough energy to come out and give 100% like we have generally seen from this squad, as Josh Hart can give you over 40 minutes, if Jalen Brunson's ankle or foot is not going to bother him, then I think there's a pretty good shot that they just come out here and win this game in front of this home crowd. They're 4-1 straight up in the postseason at home. Now, they're 1-4 ATS, but now you're talking about, again, a game where you just need them to win in a venue in which they have won 4 out of 5 in the postseason. But that's a difficult question to answer. Are they healthy? Are they refreshed? Are they rested and ready to go? And when part of the need is, hopefully this home court can push them past the finish line. I don't know, man. That seems like a tough ask when it comes to what the Knicks are dealing with.
So Jalen Brunson started this postseason a little bit slow, believe it or not, right? Went under his player prop the first 2 games against the Philadelphia 76ers, 22 and 24 points respectively. Then he became the flamethrower, 39, 47, 40, 41 to close out the Philly series. He started this series with that 43-point performance in Game 1. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, Jalen Brunson has gone under his last 3 player props, and we've seen the corresponding line move. So it was 37.5 in the game in which he got hurt, missed the end of the first quarter and all of the second quarter, came back, had 24 points in the second half, and ultimately the Knicks won that game in Indianapolis, had 26 in Game 3. That was the Dante DiVincenzo game. And then in the blowout, only had 18. So market's come down a little bit here. 32.5 is where we stand on him. The peak was 37.5, but he has gone under in 3 consecutive games.
Yeah, and, I mentioned in passing Brian Windhorst's ridiculous, statistic about, the distance of his elbow on his jumpers, at the beginning of the series to where it's been in the last couple of games and how much lower it is because you're just not getting the same lift. Look, this team's just dealing with attrition. And, there is a bigger point, there's a bigger topic of conversation about something like this when it comes to the way that Thibodeau is using his squad. And I think you can make the argument that, again, we are kind of seeing the symptoms of a Tom Thibodeau-led team, which is run your guys into the ground, and you can see some of the negatives of that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to win obviously you got to gut something out here. And from a workload standpoint, it's going to be pretty interesting when you see what a Jalen Brunson will have, what Josh Hart will have. Will Thibodeau just go out there and tell them, we got to grit through this, boys? Or will you actually put some guys out there you're not too comfortable with at certain times just so you can maybe get these guys a little bit of a reprieve on the floor?
Josh Hart, 24 minutes. He must be incredibly refreshed after that game on Sunday. 48, 48, 43, games 1 through 3, just 24 minutes on Sunday. As for the Indiana Pacers, they play in Indianapolis. You can call them the Indianapolis Pacers if you want. That's not their name, though. Ty Halliburton has seemed like he has kind of found his pre-injury form here.
Oh, yeah.
He's been getting hot. He's been playing much better as of late. And as always, the prop tracker over there on VSiN.com is a great tool to utilize when looking at the player props and how folks have performed. Tyrese Halliburton has gone. He went under in Game 4, but had that 35-point performance on Friday, and then the 30-point performance in Game 2. So he has started to find the form a little bit here as of late.
Well, I think you could argue, too, he's just not facing that much resistance.
Right.
This team's got nothing. This team's exhausted.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the worst defensive teams by defensive rating now in this postseason is the New York Knicks, and I don't think it's by any fault of their own. It's not a scheme issue. It's the fact that these guys are so gassed that they're not playing high-level defense anymore. And look, Tyrese Halliburton's look great. You don't want to take anything away from him, but this has just been what we've seen from the New York Knicks at this point right now. So that's going to be, as we kind of get into this game, right, not only what you have just from a workload standpoint, just from a heart and a grit standpoint, are you going to be able to defend at a somewhat decent level? Are you going to give up the energy on defense so that you can actually come back on the other wing of energy on offense? And the Pacers, they're going to try to make you run. They know what we all know, which is you guys have 5 guys that you trust and you're playing 7 because you don't have any other choice. We are going to get you up and down the floor. We are going to exhaust you. We're going to try to make you work and try to make you feel some of the shortcomings of this roster. And that's going to be pretty fascinating. And you've kind of seen them do that to them in these last couple of games in Indiana.
Pacers-Knicks is a later start than normal. We'll start at 8 o'clock Eastern at Madison Square Garden. Interesting to note, as we're sitting here and talking, here comes some Knicks money.
Yep.
The circa just moved out to 2, so a little bit of resistance here and a little bit of buyback on the New York Knicks. Late night, 10:30 Eastern, the defending champs who were dead and buried, heart of the champion, says Michael Malone. They have even this series up However, what's interesting to note here, of course, that the road team has won all 4 games in this series so far. We've seen some Minnesota love in the market, right? This thing opened 4.5, is now sitting 4 pretty much across the board. You even see one offshore shop has gone down to 3.5. Timberwolves, Nuggets, Anthony Edwards, we played you the clip yesterday, said he loved it. He loved the resistance. This is what they wanted, which I would contend, he probably would have preferred to win one of those games at home. But 2-2, late night. Minnesota, Denver, total sitting at 206 in this one.
Yeah, I obviously can't wait to see what this one's going to be. There's some really fascinating statistics around what Denver did offensively in the 2 games in Minnesota that you would argue for any other team is unsustainable, but for the Denver Nuggets, maybe it's not, and it focuses around their mid-range shooting. But overall, I think it boils down to 2 things. For Minnesota, you got some things to figure out defensively. We can get into the details of that a little bit later in the show. And on offense, outside of Anthony Edwards, you need some better performances. Karl-Anthony Towns can't start a game the way that he did on Sunday. You need better shooting. And guys like Jaden Daniels, it's going to be interesting to see what you're asking from him. Jaden McDaniels, because that dude is asked to do a lot on defense. And that doesn't necessarily translate to really efficient offensive support. So can't wait for tonight. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I can't wait either. We got 2 games on the ice. Greg Wyshynski from ESPN will join us at 6:45 Eastern. Our bets coming up at the bottom of the hour. What we took in last night. Celtics take care of business, don't cover. But the Thunder battle back and take the series lead.
This is VSiN PrimeTime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You ready to become your own sports betting expert? Look no further than a VSiN Pro subscription. Your ticket to insider insights, exclusive data, and winning strategies. For a limited time only, we're offering our annual subscription at an unbeatable price. Normally priced at $240, you can now grab your sub for just $199. And if you use the promo code PRIME, P-R-I-M-E, we'll throw on another 2 months for free. That's 14 months of VSiN Pro access for $199. How about that? That's less than 50 cents a day when you use the promo code PRIME. With VSiN Pro, you get the daily best bets. You get 19 hours of live programming, proven betting systems, betting splits, articles in every single sport and more. VSiN.com/subscribe. Claim your 14 months of VSiN Pro access for less than $200. Use the promo code PRIME. That's VSIN.com/subscribe.
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Yeah, if you're going to sign up, and now's a great time, obviously. We're getting some game times, getting some different scheduling situations for the NFL coming out. Tomorrow, by the way, at 8 o'clock Eastern, we'll have the schedule release special here. Me and JVT will be breaking it down for you. Got another schedule note that just came out, courtesy of Jordan Schultz, that the Chiefs and Niners, the rematch of this past year's Super Bowl, will take place in Week 7. So Tom Brady will be on the call of that. We will get into some of the other nuggets that we got today, courtesy of the scheduling. Thursday Night Football, Week 2. The first Thursday night game on Amazon Prime is going to be Dolphins-Bills in Miami. We know Monday Night Football will be San Francisco hosting the New York Jets. So slowly but surely, they're coming out. And then tomorrow, officially at 8 o'clock Eastern, we will know the entire schedule. JVT will be ready to break it all down. But last night, we saw a impressive performance in the fourth quarter from the Oklahoma City Thunder as they come back.
From Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Fair. As Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was absolutely tremendous. And the offensive rating in that fourth quarter, this courtesy of Matt Moore, was 140 for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They come back. They beat the Dallas Mavericks 100-96. They have evened up that series. I misspoke going to break. They have evened up that series at 2 games apiece. They have now flipped back to the favorite to win this series, JVT. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as you alluded to, the mid-range game was on point. Didn't have to get to the rim. He was just finding spots and burying turnarounds, tough shots. And ultimately, the Thunder claw their way back and get a really impressive win.
10 points on 4-7 shooting. 3 rebounds and 4 assists with no turnovers for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Also had a steal and a block in the fourth quarter yesterday. Was absolutely brilliant. The moment of, dude, it was just under 5 minutes left, but you're in a crunch time game. You've been down the whole entire contest. You cannot buy a bucket at the rim at all. And this dude pulls up for a baseline jumper behind the backboard, and he nails it. That guy was so good yesterday. It was great to watch. And now as you move forward, it's going to be pretty interesting because I like basketball a ton, as you can tell. And I like these playoff series because you get to talk about adjustments and what you're going to do and what are the changes you're going to make. And, you were very excited, right? You were like a dog with a bone on the Josh Giddey stuff yesterday, right? Well, an extension of that is
he stinks, by the way.
We don't have to bury Josh Giddey, okay? He's already done enough to bury himself here the last couple of weeks.
Floating around. Yeah. I'm like, what is this dude doing on the floor? Get him off.
Well, and that's kind of the thing is what the other thing that's been cool to watch about the series is we get that they're the young Thunder, but the young players who have been contributing. Yes, he's a second-year guy, but rookie Chet Holmgren was great yesterday. Rookie Cason Wallace has low-key been like a great piece for them, including playing on-ball defense against Kyrie Irving that has done a really good job on doing that. And that's kind of the interesting part is, do you get more Cason Wallace? Do you get more of these? I know it's not really great because, again, you got blocked, I think, 12 times yesterday at the rim. You couldn't get anything within 4 feet. But you go to some of these smaller lineups because you just become more versatile defensively. You don't give Josh Giddey the starting nod and then pull them pretty early. I think that's going to be the next big adjustment here is we've already seen Giddey's minutes decline, but do you just fully pull the plug and start a guy like a Cason Wallace in his place and go with that, that switchable now backcourt that you can just go and, you know what, I know we're going to be a lot smaller, but we'll switch everything. We'll feel pretty comfortable. We'll have 4 guys out there that'll play somewhat decent defense to really good defense, depending on who you're talking about here. I'm really intrigued to see what Oklahoma City does because even though you got the win, the ball's still in your court. You're going back to OKC. You still have to figure some things out because you could argue yesterday, Tim, with all those missed free throws, Dallas is the one that screwed that game up. Shea was awesome, but you don't win that game if Dallas does what they're supposed to do at the free throw line.
12 of 23 from the free throw line for the Dallas Mavericks, while the Thunder, 23 of 24. You mentioned Kyrie Irving and the defense from Cason Wallace. I mean, Kyrie Irving, who has been getting, I think rightfully so, a lot of praise, has kept himself out of the headlines and has really accepted his role there in Dallas. He's had moments, and I know Game 2, where they ultimately won, he was looked at as, all right, he didn't complain for not getting his. But I think it's also at a point, too, JVT, where we need to recognize just how well Oklahoma City is guarding him. He had 9 assists last night, but he was ineffective scoring in a game in which they certainly could have utilized him because Luka Doncic was certainly off yesterday, too.
Just a little under 10 minutes left to go, and we'll bring it back to Wallace really quickly. The Mavericks get a rebound. They go down court, and Kyrie Irving's got the ball just over half court. He pulls up for a transition 3. Cason Wallace stops and sprints and contests that shot and blocks it. He was awesome. And how about this from ESPN Stats and Info? Opponents are 14 of 54. That's 25.9% when rookie Cason Wallace is the primary defender in the playoffs. That's incredible. So, and think about, again, going to that, Tim. So if you revert and you go, all right, let's just go a little bit smaller. Let's bring Cason Wallace out here. Let's start him in some of these games. You have Cason Wallace, you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you have Lou Dort, you have Jalen Williams. Those are all really good defenders that you're going to have out there. So you're giving up some size, but you're willing to do that because they're so good defensively along the perimeter, and it puts you in a place where, guess what? You don't have to play off of PJ Washington. You can feel comfortable in that regard because because PJ Washington's killing him. Right, there was one possession where they completely left him on the left wing so he could hit a 3.
5 of 11 again yesterday.
Right, but if you're going to play 4 guys who have that defensive versatility and you trust in one-on-one situations, guess what? You don't have to do as much. Help. Because you know that your guys are going to be out there. And so then all of a sudden the adjustment is, all right, now PJ Washington can't hurt us anymore. Well, we're also comfortable guarding the best players on this floor with the dudes that we have. So that just seems to be the next natural step here with the Oklahoma City Thunder in terms of what they're going to do. I'd be really surprised if Cason Wallace doesn't end up starting for them in this next game.
Luka Doncic has gone under his player prop every single game. He clearly is not 100% healthy. And you think about a guy where there were plenty of people in the media realm, and we had a nice laugh about it because there was this strong push of Luka Doncic is going to win MVP, and ultimately he finished 3rd in the voting. But you look at this series, do you chalk it up to health, or do you chalk it up to defense from the Thunder? A little bit of both, because Luka Doncic, who shot almost 40% from three during the regular season, is shooting 31% from three in this series. Now, he didn't shoot very well against the Clippers either. He's shooting 39% from the field, but if you remove Game 2, where he was really good, he had 29 points, 10 boards, and 7 assists in that game. Outside of that, he was 30% from the field last night, 41% in Game 3, and then 31% in the Game 1 loss. The two victories this year, he's shooting 2 victories for the Thunder, he's shooting 12 of 39 from the field.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a mixture of both, right? It doesn't have to just be one thing. It could be both of those. It could be that an unhealthy Luka Doncic is taking on a really good perimeter defense, and then that is exacerbated by that. I mean, if the Mavericks go on to win this series, I mean, you should hang a P.J. Washington jersey because he burned them. But if the Thunder are able to kind of turn off that faucet and continue to play this well defensively against Luka and Kyrie, I mean, this is a series that, again, you make that adjustment, it works in your favor, and 2 of the next 3 on your home court. It seems like a pretty favorable situation for Oklahoma City. And obviously the market reflects that. They're a $1.60 favorite with the best 2 out of 3, 2 of those coming in Oklahoma City.
And they're right now a 4-point favorite for Game 5 tomorrow night in Oklahoma City, 9:30 Eastern tip time.
Might have to go back to those P.J. Washington unders one more time, huh? I mean, seriously, if Casey Wallace starts, that's like a legitimate adjustment that might change. So we'll see if that's going to happen. But if they start Josh Giddey again, you're not beholden to him. Don't start him. You don't have to do it.
Why? I mean, look, I'm happy we cashed the ticket last night, and I got a little bit nervous when, from some odd reason, he came into inbound with 8 seconds to go, and I got worried that there would be a hot potato right back to him. And he inbounded to Chet. Chet got fouled if he had thrown it back to Giddey. But it's very odd that he is getting, even as little as he is, why do you keep starting it? Is it just we don't want to change up what we've been doing all year kind of fact? It's bizarre to me when he is completely ineffective in this series, and he's detrimental. You're playing, they just leave him wide open on the arc.
Yeah. So I think that's the change. And Dagnall, to his credit, has adjusted a bit. Like we've talked about. The minutes have been cut.
He didn't start the second half either, I don't think, did he?
No, I don't believe he did. Everything's a blur, though. My mind is mush. But we've seen Dagnall at least come off of it a little bit here in terms of the minutes. They've definitely been cut into, as we have seen. But now it's just time to just go full on. Just go with Wallace, start him, get 4 really good perimeter defenders out there, and see what happens.
Greg Wyshynski going to join us in about 20 minutes to break down the night on the ice. But up next, we got our best bets, including some hockey, and it's a Tuesday. First fives from JVT.
Is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Excited for this one. You can get an in-depth preview of the PGA Championship with VSiN's golf betting experts on the Long Shots podcast. Our guys, Wes Reynolds, Matt Brown, Kelly Bidlin, break down every aspect of this year's second golf major, including their best bets. So subscribe and download the podcast with a new episode out Tuesday, or check out the live airing on VSiN Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That's here at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. You'll definitely want to check it out. Those guys know I was about to curse. I got so excited.
Hey, it's a family program.
I
mean, not really.
I was going to say, you got to be 21 or older.
Well, not 21 or older to listen. We could teach the young people, mold them before you legally gamble, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
That's JVT. I'm Tim Murray. Hey, we're free on YouTube, hour number 1, as always, youtube.com/VSiN Live. We got the comments there. Paul B. chimes in, and he says, what do y'all think of betting Pacers in-game money line if they're down by double digits? What scenario would you start to take that action? Seems to me like the Knicks get a good lead and fade away in the end. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate the comment there. You can always chime in on YouTube. Also, tweet us at MeJVT, at 1TimMurray. What's your feel on how this game could potentially start? Do we see the Knicks come out a little bit rested, a little bit agitated, and try to put it on the Pacers?
No, I mean, I think that strategy really does make a lot of sense. Let's take, for example, yesterday, right? We saw Cleveland and Boston, and ultimately didn't get there, but so what was it? At the first time out, were we 60 seconds in? It was 8-2?
It was 8-2. In-game was at DraftKings 8.5. I laid 9.
And it closed pre-flop, 12.5? So you saw, so the whole point there is, for a big favorite like that, in 1 minute of game time, because of a decent start, 8-2, only 6 points, you saw a number that closed 12.5 get down to 8.5 in some spots in game. So to the point there, right, which is, should I bet this in game? I would say yes, especially because you're not looking at a game that has a 9 or an 8.5 point spread or a 12-point spread. You're looking at a game that's at 1.5. So if the Knicks come out and go up 6-0, like it just 3-point shot, stop, 3-point shot, you're looking at a much better price on a Pacers team that is already the underdog coming into this thing. So I think, again, we talked about this just a little bit yesterday. Just in general, I think these basketball games in-game is the way to go instead of attacking it from a pre-flop perspective. But when you get a spread like this, that's 1.5, which is telling you this is going to be a back-and-forth and tight affair, especially with a number like 1.5, you're going to get a better number probably on either side that you like. So I would say that strategy is very sound, and screw pre-flop. Just come in on Indiana at a much bigger number when the game begins. Now, to the second part of that question is, when do you do it? I think that's more of a feeling out thing. I do agree with the premise that if you like Indiana and you think that part of that is the Knicks just don't have enough in the tank, you're probably holding out until a little bit later in the game, right? Second half, end of third quarter, whatever it is, because you would expect that if the gas is going to run out, it's going to run out later in the game. That's the general premise when you talk about these second legs of back-to-backs, things like that, is fatigue doesn't manifest itself in the first half. This fatigue manifests itself in the second half, right, when you've worn down through attrition. So it would make a ton of sense.
It's kind of like what we saw in the Lakers-Nuggets series. If you just came in blindly in the second half, you went 4-1, right? They were down at the half in all 5 games. The only game that they won was game 4, and there were plenty of opportunities. I know plenty of people out there decided to come in game. Yeah, I have not bet this game. Well, full disclosure, I did bet a little money line last night at a bad number, so revoke the sharp card. Will not be a best bet for me. But I initially thought about coming in on the Knicks, but I'm going to see how this game plays out. I do think, to Paul's comment there on YouTube, I do think his thought process is kind of sound here, where you're looking at a Knicks team. They're a little bit agitated. We're going to get the Josh Hart sound later on in the show, where we look at some player props. But this is a team that, clearly has heard the critics that they're going to be gassed, that Thibodeau is running them into the ground. So maybe we see a little bit of an energy burst from that crowd, and then maybe not so much. What do you got?
I'm just laughing because there's no way you could. I don't think those are critics. If they're sitting there like, they're saying you can't do it. Like, yeah, there's 4 of you. Like, it's not just nobody believes in you. It's just logic.
You're
like,
all
bro,
injured.
We had this stat the other day. Remember our stupid Knicks stats where Josh Hart's run, I think 1,000 miles over the last 2 months. That's not humanly possible. Of course people are going to think you're worn down. This is not like Mike Malone. I don't know if you saw. Did you see the comment after they won? Was it yesterday or on Sunday? He told the media that he put together the clips of all the media talking heads. That's a little different, right? A lot of people were saying, "Oh, this thing's over." A lot of people are actually just kind of feeling bad for you guys. Holy crap.
Yeah, once OG Anunoby went down, you're good Lord. Can this team catch a break? So we'll see how this game plays out. All right, let's get to it. Our best bets for tonight.
I see you using an old style.
I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom.
Putting our money where our mouth is.
I like to live dangerously.
It's time for Best Bets.
Come on, Jerry, it's a lock.
You've really come around on that sound.
I like it. Pop into it. I like a little sound. Get you going. Bottom of the hour, each and every show. First hour of the program, we always give you our best bets. JVT, we got to give your a name for your first 5 articles, because every Tuesday and Thursday on the website, you're doing a first 5 article with some best bets. It's off to a good start, so hopefully it keeps on rolling. So what do we got tonight? No NBA plays, at least in pocket yet. But what do we got for on the diamond?
Yeah, I can only bash my head into the wall so many times. So let's
go.
go.
PJ Washington to go under tonight.
Although I might go back again. You never know. If you start Casey Wallace, I'm in. All right, so the 2 baseball plays today. Let's start with the Detroit Tigers. As I have called him, maybe the best-kept secret, at the very least, a hidden gem that the Tigers have not taken advantage of. Reese Olson getting the start today for the Detroit Tigers. So we're going to lay a half run with the Tigers in the first 5 at about -120. Depending on where you shop right now. But some of the numbers that go behind this, and I always like to double check because I've always been burned by this before, so you want to make sure that guys are still starting. Yep, Olsen's still out there. So Logic behind this are a couple of things. Olsen, 39 in the third innings this season. He's allowed more than 2 earned runs just once, and he did blow up against Pittsburgh. I think it was his second start, gave up 6 earned, got absolutely smoked, but outside of that, has been absolutely great. And his last 2 starts, you could argue, were brilliant. You're talking about road starts against the Guardians and the Yankees, and in 11 innings in those 2 outings, allowed just 3 hits, 1 earned run. He's been great. Now, Tigers don't necessarily give him run support. I think they will today. Ryan Weathers is getting the start here against him. You're looking at some of the numbers. Weathers, 23rd percentile strikeout rate, generate whiffs at just a 25% clip. He doesn't, let me see, ranking well below average at barrel rate, hard hit rate as well. The Tigers should be able to get the Weathers, I would assume, even with this destitute lineup that does not rate pretty well. And on the other end, Olsen gets to take advantage of a lineup that is just very, very poor. We're talking about a team that is 29th or 30th in a lot of different major offensive categories. Give me the Tigers minus that half run in the first 5 at about a minus 130 price. You can see it right there, minus 120, still at DraftKings. I think the Tigers can take advantage of this with Olsen. By the way, Olsen is such a good example, Tim, of why I like first 5 betting. He is great. We're talking about an ERA floating around 2. The Tigers are 1-6 in his outings, and they average just over 2 runs of run support. So he gets nothing. This is why I like first 5s. This is, you can get the pitcher, you can attack it in different ways, and you don't have to rely on a team giving him some run support for the most part. Other one, we'll go to New York and we'll go to Minnesota. Carlos Rodon, Chris Paddack are going to go at it here in this matchup. For those who have not been paying attention, potentially, the Twins have been on fire. Since April 22nd, Twins lead the league in weighted runs created plus and WOBA. They're 5th in home runs. They're 17-3 in their last 20 games. They've been playing some incredible baseball. They've been swinging the bats really well, and they just keep going. On Sunday, we saw them jumped all over Alek Manoah and Eric Swanson on Sunday and got a win. So this team has been rolling pretty hard, and you get Rodon, and you look at it, you're like, well, Rodon could probably hold them down. But I think there's some things that stick out for Rodon's numbers. 3.56 ERA, 4.58 fielding independent. He's been getting away with a ton of hard hit fly balls here. 20th percentile in hard hit rate, 17th percentile in barrel rate allowed. Only 33.9% of batted balls allowed are ground balls. And if there's going to be a lineup that could take advantage of it, it's a Twins group that right now is hitting very well. And by the way, 8th in both weighted run created plus and WOBA against left-handed pitching this season. But we bet this thing over because if you look at the other end, Chris Paddack, solid, but pretty average to below average. And this Yankees lineup is awesome. Aaron Judge has finally woken up, by the way. He's got a 10-game on-base streak. He's hitting 364 over that stretch. I think we're going to get some fireworks here. So first 5 over 4.5, minus 105. And Tigers first 5, minus a half run at minus 120.
All right, there we go. 2 plays on the diamond. Greg Wyshynski, by the way, going to break down the night on the ice coming up in just 5 minutes. I'll give you 2 hockey plays. You mentioned the P.J. Washington play and just some of your NBA plays bashing your head into the wall.
Yes.
Well, this might be one of those. So Vancouver and Edmonton have gone over in all 3 games. And I was texting with friend of the program, Todd Furman, who is much smarter than I am. And he said, if you want to hate yourself, there's actually some value on the under tonight in Oilers Canucks. Over it was 6 over minus 125 in game 1, 6 over minus 130, moved to 6.5 for game 3, JVT. It's gone over in all of them, and now it's 6.5 minus 112 to the under. We're going to go under and hate ourselves in that one. And then first period under in Bruins-Panthers. It finally went over in the series in game 4 as the Panthers scored the Bruins scored 2 goals in that first period. But I will go back to the well here. First period under Boston and Florida at minus 115.
Goaltender change. Can't wait to watch what happens.
We will see.
Good for you.
Greg Wyshynski, he'll give us the latest and tell me how dumb my bets are on the other side.
This is VSiN PrimeTime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Sound the trumpets. We need real trumpets here, folks. It's horse racing time. There you go. So saddle up for the action with DK Horse, an official DraftKings affiliate. Right now, new customers who download the DK Horse app can get a 100% deposit bonus up to $250 when you use the promo code VSiN Horse, all one word. Just deposit $25 or more and complete the playthrough requirement. Wager on your favorite horses, then watch the races live right in the app. Download the DK Horse app now.
You know what tonight is, JVT?
Start of the
Clark
WM.
debut. She will take the floor. We'll get the latest from all the player props and liability that the books are seeing, how much extra action books are seeing because of the debut of Caitlin Clark as her Indiana Fever are 8-point underdogs tonight. I believe we have a new segment that we're going to try out in the next hour.
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Well, I'm just letting people know. But we also have 2 games on the ice tonight, and to help us break those down, it is Greg Wyshynski from ESPN, senior writer over there at ESPN. He joins us on our progressive guest line. All right, I just mentioned it, and you can tell me how dumb I am. I was texting with a buddy, and he said, believe it or not, there might be a little bit of value on the under in Vancouver and Edmonton. There is a goalie change. Oilers are going with Cal Pickard in net. This number opened 6 to start the series, Greg. It's gone over in Game 1, Game 2, and Game 3. How dumb am I for playing under in Oilers Canucks?
You're not that dumb because here's the thing. Stuart Skinner, their starting goalie, was pulled and replaced for this game because he was bad, right? But for me, the reason they make this change is more of a signal to the team that you got to play better defensively in front of your goalie than a signal to the team, okay, we got to figure it out now. This guy who has never played a playoff game is going to come save us. You know what I mean? So if the thought is that the goalie change is a wake-up call to the rest of the Oilers to play a little bit more tight and play a little bit better in front of this guy that's completely untested, then there might be something to the idea that it could be a closer game tonight.
Is this Oilers team, I guess, I don't want to say weaker because that's obviously a pretty negative word, but I'll use it for lack of a better term. But is this team weaker than most expectations? Because every time we talk to somebody, Greg, it's like a foregone conclusion, they're going to win the series, they're going to move on. But with these issues at goal, I feel like there's there's that Death Star hole that you could find and shoot your torpedoes down and blow the whole thing up.
Well, listen, I picked them to win the Cup, so yeah, they are weaker than I thought they'd be. But I think the big thing, and you hit on it there in this series, more so than the goaltending, has been the fact that the Canucks supporting cast has been much better than that at Edmonton. I mean, when you've got McDavid and Draisaitl playing 30 minutes a night in the second round of the playoffs, something's gone wonky because the whole point of it is to try to be better as a team so those guys don't have to necessarily carry the day. So you're right. I mean, no one expected the goaltending to be quite as bad as it's been, and certainly no one anticipated their supporting cast getting outplayed as badly as they had been because it wasn't that case in the first round against Los Angeles.
Greg Wyshynski joining us here on our progressive guest line. It is VSiN PrimeTime. That is the second game of the doubleheader, Vancouver and Edmonton. Right now, depending on where you look, around minus 190 to minus 200 favorite are the Edmonton Oilers. Total sitting at 6.5. Before we pivot to Boston and Florida, Greg, anything you do like either from just a straight up side perspective or from the prop market in the late night game at Edmonton and Vancouver?
Well, I like the idea that Edmonton's going to even this thing up. I think that the series has kind of gotten really nasty. The cross-check on McDavid's face after the buzzer last game, resulting in the 1-game suspension for Carson Southey, the Canucks defenseman. So, I think there's going to be a lot of energy in the building. I think they're going to have revenge on their minds, and I assume that we're going to go back to Vancouver, knotted up at 2-2.
All right, let's go Boston, Florida. Panthers, really big favorites here, as high as minus 225 with a total of 5.5. As I asked this of our own Johnny Lazarus the other day, I'll ask you, are the Bruins focusing too much on officiating, complaining about things like this, and not focusing on the fact that they're really getting outplayed here on 5-on-5?
Oh man, did he mention the Rangers in the answer? That big Ranger caller? No, I love Johnny. I just saw Johnny at MSG last night. Yeah. I love that guy. I think the thing with the Bruins right now is that they clearly know that they're getting overwhelmed in this series. I mean, I was in Boston for games 3 and 4. A lot of controversy, to be sure, with the reverse hit on Marchand and with the goalie interference thing that really kind of made the blocks tumble in Game 4 for them. But I mean, midway through Game 4, it was pretty obvious that Florida was just taking over. They had more and more attacking zone time, and you can kind of just feel when a goal is going to come, and it felt like that in Game 4. So, I think they know what they're up against. I think they know this team was really good in the regular season. They were good, defensively. Their goaltending was great. They had enough to make that kind of an impact in the regular season, but You started to see it in the series against the Leafs in the first round. You certainly see it now. But the supporting cast of this Bruins team isn't as good as it was last year and isn't nearly as good as the opponents they're facing in these playoffs.
Greg Wyshynski once again joining us here. So the Bruins are on the brink of elimination for a second straight year against the Florida Panthers. And sometimes in these elimination games, if you just look back to the last round, games 6 and 7, all the games that went 6 and 7 all went under the total. Do we see a tighter, more defensive-minded Boston team? Or do we see on the flip side, Greg, a team that's desperate come out and try to pepper Carolina as much as possible?
No, I mean, I think they're gonna play to their identity, which is to play as tightly defensively as they can in front of Jeremy Swayman, who's been by far the best goalie, in my opinion, in the playoffs. He's their way to get to a game 6, and they have to support that, and they have to try to win a very tightly played game. And besides, it's not as if Florida is going to allow them to play anything but a tightly played game. One of the big differences between this series this year and last year's series is the fact that Florida has become really proficient in shot suppression. I mean, you look at the average shots per game that Bobrovsky faced last season, and it was slightly inflated with some overtime work. But I mean, it's no comparison. I mean, he's just not seeing nearly as much action in this season as he saw last season. So it's not as if Boston can really open it up anyway, because the Panthers don't allow it. And I expect them to be better defensively, Florida, in this game than they were in Game 4.
So I can't wait. We mentioned the Rangers. We got to go to this. One of the things that I brought up to our guy Johnny was, the metrics say Carolina's kind of been outplaying New York in the early portion of the series, but the results haven't been there. Is this the start of those metrics playing out? Should the Rangers be nervous?
Yeah, I think so. I said to all my Rangers friends after Game 4, there was nothing in that game that really gave you pause about Carolina rallying in this series. But then you started to see a lot of signs in Game 5 that it could happen. Freddie Anderson playing a really strong game for them, giving them saves and key opportunities. The Rangers' power play, which has carried them not only through rounds of the playoffs, but also throughout the regular season, has now gone 3 straight games without a goal for the first time since March. And that was really, the special teams advantage was a determining factor in the first couple games of the series. So I think the last thing that this team wanted was to have to go back to Raleigh for a Game 6, because that is a very difficult place to play and a very difficult place to win. So I gotta be honest with you, man. I'd be surprised if there wasn't a Game 7 in this series. Doesn't mean I think Carolina's going to win, but I do think that right now they've got all the juice and they've got a huge opportunity to win a Game 6 at home.
What's interesting, Greg, is, and this is something that JVT points out a lot, is kind of the market overreactions, right? So you look at Game 3, Carolina was a minus 149 favorite or somewhere in that ballpark. Game 4, minus 141. They lost Game 3. They won Game 4. Now they're around minus 170. So are people just assuming now that the Rangers have dropped 2 in a row, that we will automatically get this Game 7?
But I mean, like you said, the assumption's always been there that Carolina was the better team and that Carolina was going to win the series. I mean, remember that series number before we got rolling? It was kind of shocking how the Rangers were undervalued because of how well they played in the previous round and how good they are as a team. So it's not surprising to see it swing back the other way so emphatically now that there's a little bit of adversity visiting the series. But again, it requires them to win 4 straight games against a New York team that's quite good. And even in Game 6, like we just talked about, I mean, if their power play gets going, if Shesterkin plays as good as he did in the first 2 periods of Game 5, after not really having a strong third period, then they could easily win Game 6.
45 seconds. Is it all she wrote for Colorado?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, they had some adversity hit them at the wrong time with Nikushkin getting caught up in the NHLPA drug recovery program. But also, Dallas is a wagon right now. Like, they've got everything firing. I love this team and the way it's put together. And, although you still have a lot of star power on that Colorado team that could pull out a win, I think in the long haul, it's going to be Dallas that advances.
Senior NHL writer from ESPN, Greg Wyshynski. Greg, always appreciate it, man.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
There he is, Greg Wyshynski, courtesy of our progressive guest line. That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Guess what? We don't have an NBA game starting for another hour.
That's right.
But we do have the Caitlin Clark debut, the latest from behind the counter on Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever, Game 1.